Ken West, the founder of The Big Day Out, welcome to noise11.com.
Welcome, that's been impressive.
Well, you know, we've had an impressive 20 years from you, haven't we?
Busy.
Does it feel like 20 years?
No, not really. I think it's just, it probably did feel more like 20 years about 5 years ago. I don't think anything feels like 20 years, does it? It's like when you get to think 20 years, unless you look at the photos of yourself from then, you're hoping that as Keanu Reeves' residual memory sticks in, that everything's all right. But unfortunately, history shows that when you look at your photos, it is 20 years.
Yeah, but I guess we started in 1992. Here it is 2012. It's 20 years down the track.
Yeah, it is.
And there's been a lot of acts that have come through The Big Day Out.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of acts that have come to The Big Day Out that would probably never have made it here at a time at their peak, at their right time to be here, and that's what's been great about it. With a lot of extent of it is that we used to miss out a lot in Australia on stuff. It's why I started touring international bands in the first place, and then now we can't seem to get rid of them. But that's all right. That's I'd like to have some. If they balance the trade up a bit more, I'll be happier. Some more Australian bands being able to champion overseas would be good, as opposed to. But that's an inevitable. Sidetrack slightly. That's an inevitable thing that happens when your currency's strong. It's an inevitable thing when the market takes a few years to adjust with cycles up and down, and that the rapid. What seemed like rapid. It didn't seem that rapid at the time. It seems pretty rapid in history now. That when the Big Day Out came along, and then the process of building up, and then the then having to adapt to. Wow, we adapted to the internet, adapted to the developments of technology that were going on, and we've seen a demise of record stores and record companies, and we've seen people change the way they buy music, and the fact that there's an additional factor as well is that people travel more and go to other international festivals because they've been to the Big Day Out, and they know that they need to go to Glastonbury in their life once if they can, and if the dollar's strong, they can try and go overseas to America to see some other things and stuff like that. So it has been quite a wild 20 years, really.
What about competition for you? We've never seen so many festivals in this country as we're seeing now. How's it affecting you?
Well, apart from considering this year as a totally rebuilding beginning again, nothing. It's really I kind of quite sad, really, in that there's call me old-fashioned, but I came from a time that I was passionate about the music and the need, and I can honestly say it's been a while since I've thought we've needed another festival, and that the reasons for those festivals existing are probably more ego-driven than logical, and that I'm not trying to protect the territory and stuff like that. I mean, simply the consequences are you can't put together what you could put together anywhere near as easily. And secondly, it seems like the simpler to understand shows are going to do better than the more complex to understand shows, because you seem to only have a 5-minute lifespan on Facebook before you're bagged and tagged. Where the process where I've always worked from is it's a few month process of discovery. I really prefer it much more when you can announce smaller numbers and then add more and change the dynamics of the show so different acts would get their exposure and stuff. But it's just very difficult. You go, well, wow, okay, there's no festivals this week. Isn't that great? I've been saying for 2 years that it's at saturation point. We've responded to the demand that it went up, and we'll respond to the demand as it goes down. It wasn't designed to be all-consuming. It was designed to be a reflection of what's current and what's happening, and a melting pot of music. And so I suppose the argument at the moment is that things that are specifically targeted genre of specific cop the least criticism because they're catering to a specific market, and the ones that are complex, you could probably tag 3 or 4 of the events into that. Laneways having a bit of trouble, Splendor had trouble, Big Dale had trouble. I mean, there's various reasons. We know all the reasons for them. There's no need to go through it and stuff with them that much. But the problem is that they're hard to understand sometimes. And you need to nurture that understanding of it. And the nurturing process is faded, I think.
Yeah. We go back to 1992. Scoring Nirvana was obviously a big.
Yeah, I know. Stephen Pav's never forgiven me for that, because he deserves the credit with that one. But but we were on the same page and we were friends and stuff with it. But it's a bummer that I've gotten most of the credit off that one. It's his intuitive approach. I mean, Stephen's got a great musical taste. He's financially not as capitalised. To the modular side of it, he's more of a talent sorcerer and stuff with connection with those people. But the Seattle sound and the Seattle scene is very much part of the thing, and that was just timely within weeks. It just kind of came up. The weird thing, the Nirvana thing, is obviously more than anything else, is that the Nirvana wanted to play the show because they're really big fans of Violent Femmes. And that's kind of where always the thing's got to be with this festival. It's got to be, they're on, I really like to see them. I mean, the weird thing last year, you'd think about it, but but it doesn't make sense until you hear it going. Tool and Rammstein said how much they loved each other. Like, good love, had never seen each other. Never seen each other's band. And so that was this thing of like, you'd think they'd have seen bands. Bands don't see bands a lot of the time because they're busy being bands.
Yeah.
So the part of the backbone of this festival is that if they're really great artists, they don't want to see just artists that do the same shit that they do. They want to they want to see Bjork if they're Rage, or they want to see Neil Young if they're Arctic Monkeys, or if they're Australian bands, and that's the great thing about it. If it's too much in a similar musical genre, the dynamics on the show are skew because it's just a mutual. People aren't diverse enough to make it exciting.
You mentioned Neil Young there. That was one of the years where you struggled, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've already passed the Neil Young mark for here. I mean, I think probably 2,000 tickets already sold more for this year than for Neil Young year, and so it'll probably... It did struggle, and it did struggle for specifically lots of reasons. It struggled here because the first year in Melbourne, the site was shit, no lack of a better term for that, because the new grass didn't take and died, and because the VRC are great at roses, not so good on grass. They're good on racetracks, but not grass. It's very specific. It was punished a bit on that level from here, but there's a necessity, of course, if you've got a big year like a Rage year, to not pigeonhole the event into going, we're monsters of rock. No, we're not. We're reflective, So therefore, I call those ones. They call them pullback years. You've got to pull it back every now and again because you can't survive by always trying to be that. But you've got to plan that. This pullback year. The balancing act with Neil Young though was Prodigy. No, so when the 15,000 people were actually excited about Neil Young were there, and the other 25,000 whatever ran off to see Prodigy, and I can't remember the stage then, but it was kind of really indicative, like, wow, that's the reason why it worked and why it struggled is because Neil Young was a big call. But we did feel that it needed to be said because he was great.
Who haven't we seen that you've come close with? I believe Pearl Jam was one of the ones we were
Pearl
talking
Jam
about.
will probably surface around, and maybe in the next year or two, I think they'll be back in cycle. They're very laid back guys. I remember for 10 years they didn't even do a film clip for any of their songs because they didn't want to be popular.
You almost had them, didn't you? And then Roskilde happened.
Yeah. Roskilde happened. Well, the whole cultural phenomenon happened, which is the same year that everything went crazy. It was the same year the internet turned on 15-year-old boys into porn watches, and then their whole brains exploded, and came and went in a couple of years. So etiquette went there on an audience level, and etiquette's gone on a technology level, and maybe it'll leach back in that people will find better things to do than just go and bag things on the internet. I mean, it seems sad. You just read the paper, you just going, you just can't post anything with any. You can't post anything with any feeling that you're safe. Because some idiot will post something ridiculous as fast as they can. I mean, who are these people?
Well, this is the first year without Vivian.
Yeah. Oh no, second.
Second.
No, 92.
92. He wasn't there for 92.
No, he turned up about 5 o'clock.
Oh, right. Okay.
So this looks all right, doesn't it? We did. There was only phone calls then. Nowadays, in those days, you have to ring people up and send them a copy of the on the street ad. He understood it, but that was the point that he just popped in. That I just remembered that then. I've never said that to anybody else before. It's scary but exciting at the same time. And now with C3 involved, it seems amazing.
Well, how will this Lollapalooza connection work?
Well, it's not so much a Lollapalooza connection as C3, which do a lot of things, including Lollapalooza. The Austin City Limits and quite a lot of tours and shows and things like that. Very simple, really. I could only ever partner up with people that have a similar approach to things, and they have a very strong vision for, obviously because I've worked with Perry Farrell, and I think, well, if you've worked with Perry Farrell, then that's probably helping me out a bit, because I'm hoping I'm not that complicated. And that the main thing with it is that we are committed to doing the right thing by the artist, and play our own game, because they're independent promoters. They're not owned by the stock market or anything like that. They're a little bit outsiders because they're not in New York or LA based or anything like that. So the simplest process is we will do a lot of things by committee discussion of what's right and wrong, and their experience will help me and my experience will help them.
Does it give you an opportunity for a bulk buy? You know, if we see an act on Lollapalooza?
It's not even like that. It's not even like that. It's more to do with having a long-term vision for what makes sense. It's not about bulk buying, it's not about anything else, it's about specifically targeting what we want to do, finding out if they want to do it. If they don't want to do it, then there's somebody else. And if they, and that's really where the biggest challenges have been with the big day out, is the expectation you can get anybody, and having an incredibly supplied festival market, oversupply of festivals and an undersupply of talent that can create any. I mean, I think we priced up the 2000 big day out as like about 85 million talent bill in today's version of what it would cost to have the Chili Peppers, Nine Inch Nails, Foo Fighters, Blink Chemical, joking figures kind of thing, going, well, that's what people think you can get. But these shows have always been the same thing. Now, you'll cop your criticisms beforehand, and afterwards they go, oh, that was actually good, that was thought out. And so these things have to be very carefully thought out. And they've just got such great relationships with management and with agents, and it used to be about the big day, it was about being in safe hands. And you'd have safe hands, you'd get here and you'd be promoted properly and the act would develop, and it would be part of a stepping stone process for a career of a band. And I think some internationally people have lost their way a bit in that it's meant to be artist development. It's not just grab the cash and run. No, that's just stupid. So our biggest problems are very simple. Is that we were getting forced into taking acts that weren't quite in cycle, because if we didn't take them, then it'd go to somebody else, and then they'd be out of cycle again. And so there's too many events at the moment of getting things that aren't in cycle, because people are desperate to grab them then, and internationally they're not quite grasping that Australia's actually part of the world, and you need to know that if you overfish, we need the bloody sea shepherd to get onto a few festivals, chunk a few out to sea. that it's meant to be organic, and that organic growth would make sense, except that unfortunately the festival scene, unfortunately created, or fortunately created by me to a large extent, has been too successful from the outside, when most people don't really know how hard it is on the inside. So there's a romantic notion that she just can do it and it all works. And so that fairy tale has to end. Because I know the financial positions of everybody, because I do a lot of research and I've spoken to a lot of people, and people are quite honest and things in here and stuff overseas, and it has to be managed like anything else. It can't be just all impulse and fear and if you match this mythical figure, you'll get that, but if you don't, they'll take it. And as the events try to morph, like the morphing bit, who'd have thought the Future Festival would be all of a sudden trying to get new order on that matter at this point, like the all heavy rock bands, and people don't quite know what they are anymore, and or that there's 90 international bands on Soundwave that doesn't really benefit anybody. It's just a glut. I don't even know how they're going to program it. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Is that there's got to be eventually a process of education where it goes, it's not good enough to put a few bands in a paddock. It was for a little while. But then, of course, if you want to make a very complex show, you're not going to get judged on the complexity of the show. You're going to get judged on a bunch of names that you put out as bands. So you have to make that distinction about what is it. There's no real loyalty structure that much anymore. Younger people especially, see something new and they might want to do it. The independent promoters that are doing a lot of these shows, a lot of them are trying to set it up so that hopefully they can sell it to a multinational company, like a stock market company, a Live Nation, AG. If you start building things that you're trying to sell to somebody else, you're in trouble. You're in trouble before you start, because you're not building it for the right people. The audience is for it, the bands it's for. It's not for, hopefully somebody will buy it off you. And that even the fact that there's 2 or 3 events that were in here, a couple have gotten away. The V Festival wasn't built the right way, and Good Vibrations. Justin Hems went backwards, forwards, I should say, to going back to being a licensee for 90 places, which I thought was enough work. As I said to him, I mean, you work really, really hard for a rich kid. I've never seen anybody work so hard, considering how well he started, and it's just in his blood. But he's learned a lesson, and that it's probably a year and a half of instability. And hopefully at the end of it, the big day will be here, be fine, and a few of the other ones will be fine, and maybe there'll be a better standard of festival, and that people will accept that I think that the other thing is the technological problem as well, as you've got to say, is that I used to go, well, why would you have 2 festival tickets in your wallet? Talking about wallet, big sex, there could be purse. But when you buy it electronically, you kind of forget you got it. So you might buy more. And then, of course, the eBay cycle came along, when everybody became a scalper. So you just got to adapt. No, that's all gone now because there's no heat and things. So the heat that was generated by ticket scalpers, as much as everybody hated them, actually led to the whole problem in the first place. It's actually we're paying the price now for what would have just, it was 5,000 tickets, I think, for Sydney one year when it was the eBay court case. That was Sydney alone that was on eBay. I think something around that, according to some figures of their figures, because we were tracking it going, everybody's a scalper. No, I'm trying to get the message out, not to scalp. Everybody's complaining about scalpers, but everybody's buying extra tickets to sell on to make a profit. And so community changes, the type of audience changes. So this is just another phase. It's not like doom and gloom. It's not like, it just means that it'd be nice if people could get excited, like in an old-fashioned way, that the circus is coming to town, and I'm going to see my mates, because you don't know where your friends are going to be at now. And so there's this whole social phenomenon that's going on that will ride through. But in the purpose of the big day out, it's more to do with what it can do with helping helping bands develop, helping international bands grow, helping Australian bands now get access more to America. Try to get through to the government people that maybe V8 supercars and Grand Prix aren't the only place to pour millions and millions of dollars into. Maybe new events aren't the bee's knees for government things, and maybe they should remember to support the things that actually exist as opposed to the ones that look good on paper. There's a lot of waste that goes on that level, and it's very infuriating for a lot of people that they just let things die, but they'll come in at the last gasp and try and resuscitate it when somebody's been telling them for years there's a problem. But that's government. The nice thing about the C3 thing is they think a lot in those lines. It's getting the respect. If the big day out was to go to another territory, it would need to be welcomed. It's not like the old days we go, oh, gee, I hope somebody will let me get a park. You've got to go on a level of saying this is a bona fide, famous or infamous event. It was infamous there for a while. I like that bit. In the mid-90s, late 90s. And that it needs to be respected as if it's a tennis match, or a sporting thing, or a fashion show for that matter. Is that the music industry now has to go to the next level because we don't have record companies that champion for us anymore because they're where you live and die in cyberspace, which is a very lonely place. You're at the mercy of conflicting information because you don't know if it's a hidden agenda or a real agenda a lot of the time, and that it really needs help to come out the other end in some kind of stability because we don't have record stores as such. We've got this faceless thing. You can't argue with really in cyberspace. You can only voice because what you're going to get back isn't logical.
Yeah. Well, that's big day out 2012, huh?
I'm off the case
pretty
there.
much summarised it.
Yeah. But anyway, this is going to be a fantastic show this year, and it always is going to be a fantastic show. But and I'm always very happy with the acts that go on because they're there. But it doesn't mean that it's perfect, and it doesn't mean it wouldn't be done a different way if we had a chance again. And and if Prince had come off, and it was the 20 years, and everybody would be dancing around and going, "Oh, well, there isn't any problem." But that didn't come off, and the problems have been amplified. So there's an old saying of more tears now, less tears later. We just went the whole hog for the more tears now, and that's to do with revising this whole process. You can't play that game anymore. You can't be, well, we'll let you know in a few months whether we can do it. We'll see, get some other offers in, and it's not like I'm trying to make it. It's like I might as well just put all the bands on eBay. If that's the case, make it a lot easier. Cut out the middleman.
It's the way to go.
Yeah,
maybe next year.
Yeah, maybe next
All right, Ken West, big day out here at Noise 11.
Thank you.